Let the record reflect the mid-year one-time incentive for 2023 December. The vote is unanimous and it has been approved. We'll now move on to the Office of the Board with 10-1 with the evaluations of employees Wilson and Washington. This was an information item, so there is no action to take under that. We'll now move on to 10-2, which is the superintendent's contract. It is requested of the superintendent a 1-year extension to extend his contract to 2026, and also a 3% increase to his annual salary, noting that the last increase that the superintendent has received was in 21-22. He did not receive an increase last year, even though our staff was all given step increases. The superintendent did not receive that. What's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers and second by Commissioner Bishop. We'll now open the floor for question or discussion. Commissioner Lomanak.
Thank you, Chairman Harris. I wanted to explain my vote before we vote. There have been some discussion of facts and how stubborn they can be. And one of the things that I appreciate about report cards is not the one sentence description of a school. Because I don't think that encapsulates what's going on at a school. But the report cards also have a lot of metrics that I think are really important when evaluating the health of a district. And in the last 5 years, our student-to-teacher ratio in core classes has gone up every year. Our vacancies, teacher vacancies, are the worst in the state. 5 years ago, they were about the same as Richland 2, our teacher retention rate. Since then, we've gone down twice as much as Richland 2, as an example. Our college or career readiness absolute numbers are the bottom quarter of the state. We're third from last in the gap between our students of color and our white students in college or career readiness. We're seventh from last in the state in the socioeconomic gap between students who live in poverty and students who do not live in poverty on the college or career readiness. And on the SC Ready, where you're either second from last or last in those same gaps. We haven't even talked about those gaps in 2 years. And I think part of the problem when we focus only on growth is that those gaps remain persistent and we aren't closing them. And I know in prior administrations, and especially when I was a teacher, we had that Close the Achievement Gap conference. We had discussions at our schools, and I think it was powerful and helpful. At the end of the day, these teacher vacancies, which I was concerned about 2 years ago and said at a work session that I was worried that we were hollowing out our schools and that the people who weren't in the schools wouldn't see it until it was so evident. And we're there now. Everybody has a kid who either knows somebody or themselves doesn't have a teacher in school. We should not be last place in teacher vacancies in this state. We should not be last place in teacher retention in this state. There just isn't an excuse for that. And I just don't think that we're headed in a direction that justifies both a raise and an extension, and that's why I'll be voting no. Thank you, Chairman Harris.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Lomanak. Any additional questions? Commissioner Weston?
Yes, ma'am. I was concerned about the fact that we do have unsatisfactory schools, needs improvement schools, and some data that was embargoed when things were looked at before the evaluation. And we've had the data breach, we've had the insurance issues throughout the district. So I think it is not the time to do an extension or to also do an increase in pay at this time.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Weston. Any additional questions or comments at this time from any other board member? Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. So the question is, we're voting tonight on the contract extension and a 3% raise. So my question becomes, did he have a satisfactory evaluation? The answer to that is yes. Also, some of the objectives that were mentioned by my colleagues is 1/7 of the evaluation process. The CEO of this organization runs a mini transportation system, a mini post office system, 50 or 40 plus small restaurants, have health and wellness and mental health services to our staff, and a myriad of other things that we could name. Also, if we look at other things, the growth rate of our district is excellent, good to excellent, and we continue to grow. And that's what schooling is about, is taking a child from where they are to get them to their potential. And that's what's in our mission. And so I would say that we need to move forward with where we are on tonight. We're also one of the largest employers in this area as well. And so with that being said, those are some of the things that sometimes get overlooked and not seen necessarily by others in the public. And so I just want to make that known, that we do have these other things that are happening within the district that must go on each and every day. Madam Chair, that concludes my comments.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Devine. Commissioner Clyburn.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Harris. So I have a question, and I'm not sure whether this would go to Dr. Witherspoon to answer or not, but as far as the period that followed, or even during COVID, but the period that followed COVID on to present day, could you tell us some of the specific programs and initiatives that the district has offered to help with the growth rate, to try to take us closer to where we need to be? Because we know we're not, nothing's perfect, but just closer to where we need to be, and that has contributed to the consistent growth that we're seeing in our district.
Sure, I may leave some things out. I know Dr. Miner and some others may be on board. We coming off of COVID, and we did see growth, but just like across the country, there were dips, and we talked about what those dips were. And CCR, I think, coming off of COVID, that was like 44%. This last year, we just finished at 55.8. I'm trying to do this off memory. R1 champs that we put together to help with some climate and culture things. We're doing some recruitment and retention pieces with well-being and resiliency with staff that is yielding some results. We've made tweaks and as was shared with the board on Friday in not just in teaching and learning, but also processes, whether that's visible learning, the clarity piece, and how we are monitoring and tracking and supporting students coming off of COVID, and doing that PLC process in schools, making sure that there's fidelity in implementation, the problem of practice, and making sure that we continue to build capacity. And even when we look at year over year, we have seen growth, certainly in 3 through 8. We've seen growth in KRA, kindergarten readiness assessment. Coming off of COVID, that was we were in the mid 30%, Dr. Hagwood, and I think we broke 40 to mid 40s in the last year. Some of our efforts with Thrive Richland, which is a grant that we did receive a number of years ago that we have taken over in the district to help with that pre-K readiness and parent involvement, parent engagement at that end. We've seen growth and feedback, positive feedback in that area. And there's been other areas where we've worked to build capacity in scheduling, in professional development, teacher training and the like, and just continue again to look at any of these metrics that we have. And I think it was indicated there are many, but to strategically look and how do we implement a plan and execute that plan with fidelity that moves the needle. And we are seeing that. And we were moving at a fairly decent clip prior to COVID, and has been stated. COVID certainly took us back, and we're still rebounding and recovering and continuing to move forward. We saw growth year over year, again in English language arts 3 through 8, not so much with math, and we continue to work on those. So those are just a few. Commissioner Clyburn and board.
Thank you so
Any additional questions or comments at this time? Right, seeing none from anyone else, we do have a motion before us to approve or not approve the superintendent's contract. At this time, we'll call for the vote. Let the record reflect that the motion did pass, 5 yeas and 2 nays. Congratulations to you, Dr. Witherspoon. We look for continued growth that will increase our absolute numbers. We've moved from 18 schools on the list to 13, and we're claiming to get all of them off the list is our goal. You all continue to do what you're doing. We'll move on now at this